Welcome everyone to a Dogwood Alliance Nature's News Desk update, where we talk about trees and why keeping our forest standing is one of the most important things that we can do to solve the climate crisis. I'm your host, Adam Collette. Luckily, I'm guessing that pretty much all of you know that forests are good for our planet. If you don't, well then, they are. Unfortunately, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of myths out there about how we actually protect forests and how they should be part of the global effort to address the climate crisis. Myths used by the industrial logging industry to convince politicians, as well as everyday people, just like you, to think that logging forests is good for the planet. In this series, we're going to bust several of those myths. Today, we're talking about planting trees. Yes, the most classic, nostalgic thing that you can do for the planet. It's practically a fact that if someone plants a tree, they feel like Captain Planet for the rest of the day. And believe me, planting trees is awesome. You should totally do it. There are amazing stories around the world of individuals turning literal wastelands into lush landscapes through a lifetime of planting trees. But here in the United States, massive so-called tree planting efforts often play right into the logging industry's hands, distracting politicians and the public from necessary actions that actually protect the forests we already have. Confused? Let me explain. To understand why incentivizing massive tree planting is not always the best solution, you first have to understand the difference between plantation forests and real natural forests. You also have to know how we actually define what a forest is. So let's start with plantations. Plantations are the cornfields of forests, rows upon rows of a single tree species, usually pine, planted for the sole purpose of being cut down. Natural forests, on the other hand, are the real forests. Forests that are diverse, contain wildlife, actual nature, a place you actually want to spend time in. In fact, there has been a global movement for decades not to consider tree plantations actual forests. So, not all forests are equal. On paper, no pun intended. But we often lump forests into a single category when talking about acres of forests that we have in the United States. In fact, the entire definition of a forest is completely shady. The U.S. Forest Service defines a forest as 1 acre or more of land with just 10% tree cover. Does this look like a forest to you? To make matters even more confusing, if you clear-cut a natural forest or a plantation, it's still considered a forest, like nothing happened. When's the last time you went hiking in a clear-cut? Well, Judy, this says here it's forest land. In essence, this vague definition of a forest hides impacts caused by industrial logging, making it much more difficult to identify logging as a major climate issue. The truth is, older natural forests are inherently better at providing ecosystem services to humans, which are things that we need, like oxygen, wildlife, habitat, and water. Peer-reviewed research shows that natural forests store up to 50% more carbon per acre than plantations do. A huge amount, especially when you consider the urgency of the climate crisis. Not only do plantations store less carbon than natural forests, they are also more susceptible to drought, use more water, are bad at surviving natural disasters, and can even increase the risk of large wildfires. Point being, while planting trees can certainly be a good thing, if we're going to address climate change in a realistic time frame, we're much better off keeping natural forests standing and focusing tree planting efforts on restoration of degraded land. If we simply want to plant a bunch of tree plantations, we might actually be making the climate problem worse. But is this something that's really happening within tree planting initiatives? Absolutely. In fact, the industrial logging industry's biggest political allies, like Representative Bruce Westerman of Arkansas and Representative Kevin McCarthy of California, love these type of approaches. Recently, Representative Westerman introduced the Trillion Trees Act, which I must admit has a nice ring to it. Sounds like a ransom Dr. Evil would request for not destroying the planet. Rather than mandating tree planting, the Westerman bill actually increases logging rates and promotes logging markets. That's why many environmentalists have nicknamed it the Trillion Stumps Act. As a recent article in Counterpunch named, quote, Representative Westerman's bill literally misses the forest for the trees. It doesn't really even acknowledge the trees themselves, only the wood that they contain. But believe it or not, feel-good bills like these get a huge amount of support from both Republicans and Democrats who get swayed by the misleading definitions. Trump even jumped on the tree planting bandwagon by initiating plans to join the 1 Trillion Trees Global Initiative. So yes, bills like Bruce Westerman's Trillion Trees Act can spell disaster for our forests, but that doesn't mean we should give up hope on protecting our forests or even planting trees. In fact, multiple studies have shown that planting trees in urban areas have enormous benefits not only to our environment, but also to the social, economic, and mental health of the community. Additionally, restoration and protection of natural forests, particularly along rivers and coastal areas, provides some of the most cost-effective protection from major storms and can dramatically increase biodiversity. Not to mention creating the foundation for sustainable economic development and growth in these rural areas. Trees take a long time to grow, and we have a short time to address the climate emergency. While planting trees like crops and increasing logging rates is the wrong direction, solutions like keeping our forests standing, restoring degraded land, and planting trees in urban areas are directions we should absolutely be moving in. I'm Adam Collette for Dogwood Alliance's Nature's News Desk. Visit dogwoodalliance.org to find more information. And if you like this video, please like Dogwood Alliance on social media, leave us a comment, and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, and remember to stand for forests because forests stand for you. We'll see y'all next time.